everybody, and welcome back to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. I'm Russ, and joining me on the phone is our good old friend Brad in episode 329 today, in which case we want to wish all of you a happy new year in 2024. We're going to be going right into our topic of the day, which is our top 5 favorite games of 2023. We do this once a year, each and every year. You'll notice that Steve is missing. He is absent. He is still on said hiatus. Not to mention the fact that I did speak to him and ask if he would be able to make the show. But honestly, he was talking about how he really hasn't had a chance to play many games in the calendar year known as 2023. So it is a bit of a kind of a thwarted attempt, I suppose you could say, because he really wouldn't be able to put together any kind of list whatsoever. Having said that, though, it is kind of an interesting theme for many of us in 2023. Bradley, welcome to the show. I know that you and I have been talking about that too when we were actually first kind of coordinating when we were going to do this show, and how like we ourselves, we've had busy years.
It feels like a busy decade, but yeah, you know, Russ, there's something that happens when you reach a certain distinguished age that you can't put as many hours in on games. And, you know, it's funny, when I was putting together my list, the 2023 had some really good games that I really wanted to play. And there's quite a few that I just never got a chance or an opportunity. So I'm excited to hear what your top 5 are. I know, you know, for me, it was a great year as I was looking over the list of what came out. And I'm excited for you to hear what my top 5 are as well.
Well, I'm excited that you're excited that I'm excited.
It's so exciting.
I tinkled a little bit.
Another sign of age.
Oh. Yes. Yes. Why am I getting up again in the middle of the night? Oh, yeah, I have to pee. That's right.
Pretty much. 2 a.m. Never mind. We're getting too personal.
But I do think it is worth noting, though, that I think it goes beyond you and I. I think that there are actually many folks who are probably within our age group that really had a busy 2023. And there was a consistent release schedule. If you think about how many games were being released. Yeah, there really was.
There was a ton, and a lot of it was big. Whether it was Baldur's Gate, whether it was Zelda, whether it was Spider-Man. I mean, you know, some of these games were, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 hours. Okay, yep. Fine, Spider-Man was like 20, but still. Final Fantasy. I mean, there were a lot of really big, involved, you know, immersive games.
Yep.
That weren't bite-size, opportunities where you can knock them out in a couple hours.
It's very true. And even the games that I did play, to your point, I mean, like there are certain titles that I still haven't beaten yet. Like I've gotten really far into the game, but it's just funny to me because typically speaking, you know, in the past I've been able to play through and beat several titles all throughout the year. And so I have this, you know, bookend type of experience with each one of those games. This year, some of them, yes, but others, no. And some games I haven't even played yet. I remember we were talking on the phone and you had mentioned Alan Wake 2.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I have not even purchased that game yet. I'm a big fan of the first title. So I guess it goes without saying that this particular time that we're going through our top 5 favorite games. It's worth noting the fact that neither Brad nor myself, we have not played every single big title that has come out in 2023. This is merely more of the games that we have individually played, our lists of what it is that really struck our personal fancies. And so we're going to go from our number 5 and work our way up to our number 1 pick for 2023.
Yeah, and I think that's a great call out, Russ. And to me, that's why it's favorite game of the year, not best game of the year.
Yep.
Because hey, spoiler alert, Alan Wake 2. I'm really enjoying it. I'm like an hour in. It is not on my list because I'm only an hour in. Spoiler alert, Baldur's Gate. I started playing Baldur's Gate 3. It's amazing for the 45 minutes to maybe an hour and 15 that I played. So it's not on my list, but if I had 40 hours that I'd put into it, maybe it would be. So yeah, I absolutely, I tried to focus on things that I played all the way through, or as I'm looking at my list, actually, yes, I think all 5 of them I have played all the way through. So yeah, don't come after us with pitchforks and say, you guys are wrong. Baldur's Gate was the best game ever. You got to have sex with a bear.
Little bestiality, eh?
Yeah, I mean, there are not a lot of games where you get to pick your penis or your vagina, whatever you want to go with, in the beginning of the game.
Family jewels are important, Bradley. The naughty bits, as it were.
I have not gotten to the part in the game where it matters what your wiener looks like, but maybe we'll get there.
Does it lean to the left or the right? Is there an option for that?
No, just kind of dangles there. Just kind of dangles.
Is it in the igloo, so to speak?
Oh man.
Well, why don't you kick us off on what your top number 5 pick?
Numero 5. Number 5. And you're going to hear a few of these types, actually only 2 of these types of games on my list. Dave the Diver was my 5th favorite game in the year. It was a perfect bite-sized game after I finished, I think it was actually after I finished my number 2 game that we'll get to a little bit later. Needed something a little bit smaller, a little bite-sized. I really enjoyed Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver has I'm going to avoid the controversy of whether it's an indie game or not, because the studio behind it has a crap ton of money. But indie style game, I guess, would be the safe way to put it. You do some diving, you're fighting off sharks, you're looking for treasure, you're upgrading so you can go longer, carry more treasure, and then once you do that, then you go work at a sushi restaurant and kind of do a like almost a little mini game of trying to get people food and make sure you get A+ reviews and their version of Instagram. It is so much fun. The characters in it are just kind of crazy and fun to watch. And weird stuff happens. I don't want to get too into it, but weird stuff happens along the way. So Dave the Diver came in at number 5 on my list.
Dave the Diver. I remember that title. I have not seen it, though. Do you think I would like it?
You might, actually. It to me, it's a perfect Switch game where you can play a day or 2 days, and it's 20 minutes. You're just kind of winding down, and it's worth checking out. It's like, I don't know, $10, $20. It's a cheapie. It's a cheapie. It's worth picking up.
Well, I'll have to take a look. I might pick that up. Dave the Diver. I remember, like I said, I recognize the name, but I don't know too much about it. But I'll have to take a look.
Well, Russ, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Interesting.
This is a game that I was looking forward to for a while. Ever since the initial Fallen Order game had come out, I was like just hoping that we would get a sequel, and I was pretty confident that we were, because the first title was well received. And so when this game was released, I definitely look forward to being able to dive back in. They did take a little bit of a different approach with this sequel, in the sense that, if you recall, in the first game, even though you could fly to different planets, it had kind of a more or less more of a linear-esque kind of experience, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. In this title, they decided to play with open world. And what's interesting about that is, for me, like on the one hand, it was really nice to be able to decide where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. What I found was a little surprising, though, was there is a bit of a give and take, if you will, with that, in the sense that you don't have as many planets to go to as, say, like, in the first game, there seemed to be like enough of a variety of planets that you would go gallivanting and swashbuckling on, versus this one where the planets were much larger in scale, right? So like there was more to explore on those planets, but that means that you don't have as many planets to go check things out. So there is that. The narrative on it, honestly, was probably one of the strongest aspects of the game for me. Like I really enjoyed the story. I like seeing the continuation of the friendships and relationships that Cal Kestis has, and this new friend or I don't know if I should. I won't spoil it, but like there's a new character in the game that you come across, and I really love how they weave the story in, because in my opinion, I feel as though it really taps into more of that kind of relationship, that Star Wars style relationship, where you kind of run the gamut of like befriending, and perhaps there's some betrayal, or there's some like different perspectives on things and whatever. And like what I thought was so successful in this game was how palpable that interaction was, how palpable the story beats were as you went along. I will say that I can't remember the Jedi's name, but basically the kind of the ancient Jedi in there, he the visuals, I have to say, he looked like he belonged as an elf in Lord of the Rings. Has kind of the Elrond vibes, if you will.
Yeah, tall, skinny, yep.
Yeah, pale skin, clothes kind of look like, it's like, I think someone was a fan of Lord of the Rings when they made this character. But I mean, that's kind of a small potato for me in terms of like the overall experience, the lightsaber battles, the fact that they really dove into the abilities and the different fighting styles of the Jedi, depending on like what type of lightsaber loadout, if you will, you prefer. If you want just the classic one lightsaber, if you wanted a lightsaber in both hands, if you wanted the dual bladed lightsaber. I think there was one other one I'm not thinking of.
There was a lightsaber and a blaster. I thought that was a fun one.
That's what it was. So overall, I mean, and the graphics, my goodness, there were certain moments in the game as I was playing where I was just completely blown away by the cinematic moments that they captured. I mean, the overall aesthetic really did feel like we were in the world of Star Wars. So that is my number 5.
Okay, very nice, very nice. That's a good number 5. Good number 5.
Oh, thank you, Bradley.
So good. Are we on to number 4? Number 4. Numero cuatro. My number 4 is Marvel's Spider-Man 2.
Oh!
I loved the first. I loved the first Spider-Man. I absolutely loved Miles Morales. I thought that as a smaller, bite-sized game, I thought the character of Miles was a little more exciting than the character of Peter Parker, who maybe has gotten a little bit stale. And I was excited to play Marvel Spider-Man 2, and it was more of the same. It really was. It was more of the same. There's some tweaks along the way, but there is nothing. No game has been able to capture the superhero feeling like when you're just swinging around Manhattan and going through New York. And it just feels good. And stopping little crimes along the way, and some of the cinematic moments, and some of the places that the story goes, because this story goes places. It goes places fast, and then it comes back from them fast, which might be a criticism. But I really enjoyed my time with Spider-Man 2. I think I got the Platinum Trophy on it. I'd have to take a look. I think I chased all those little pieces down.
Oh, good for you.
The crazy thing is I thought some of the side missions were actually some of the most touching moments of the game. So if you are playing Spider-Man 2 or are planning on playing it, make sure you do the side missions. There's not a lot of them. But there's one where you track down a girl's missing grandfather, and that's fantastic. There's another one with pigeons, and that one is also really, really good. So just very human, kind of showing that human side of the Spider-Man universe. But yeah, I really liked it. It was number 4 on my list. It did not reinvent the Insomniac Marvel Spider-Man games. It doesn't. Don't go at this thinking, oh, it's going to be a whole different experience. It's not that. But the zero load times, the way you can zip around the city, the fact that you can be, doing a little side thing and then all of a sudden the other Spider-Man jumps in and you're kind of tag teaming a situation. It's pretty cool. Just a good time. It's the ultimate popcorn flick in video game format. So that is my number 4.
You're gonna have kittens when I tell you this, Bradley, but I have bought the Miles Morales game. I have not played it yet. And I have not played the Spider-Man 2 sequel either. Those are like the games like I was referring to, where like there are certain games I have not played in 2023.
Wow. I am a little surprised. They are right up your alley.
I love the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's what I would tell you, Russ, is you're going to struggle. I think you'll struggle if you do them all back to back because, again, it is more of the same, right? But they're still fun. And there's a couple of moments where you kind of throw back to Miles Morales from this game. So play Miles when you get a chance. I love the Miles Morales character. I think he's amazing and just such a breath of fresh air. Yeah, that's my number 4. That's my number 4. So I have expected to hear that on your list, Russ. We haven't even talked about what we've been playing lately. But what do you have at number 4, sir?
Number 4 for me is Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh, I kind of forgot that came out this year.
I'm telling you, man, like there were a number of big hitters that came out. And like I said, like I was so preoccupied with work and life, just different types of obligations, that sort of thing. And I was really trying to be able to keep up with everything. And I did a decent job, but there are certain games where I'm just like, oh yeah, I haven't played that game yet. So, but when it comes to Hogwarts Legacy, this was a game. So I'm not, to kind of like give everybody an idea. I'm not a diehard Harry Potter fan. I am a fan of Harry Potter. I like the books. I like the movies. I enjoy going, but Harry Potter, like if I were to like compare Harry Potter to say Star Wars, like the original trilogy, OG Star Wars, or Lord of the Rings, or Indiana Jones, or Back to the Future, Harry Potter's below all of those for me personally. That's my taste, right? It's like that's what I really look for. So having said that though, I was very curious to see how this game would turn out. And I was impressed. Let me tell you. The environment. So like, I was talking about Jedi Survivor as my number 5 in terms of the open world. Hogwarts Legacy also has an open world. And to me, it's interesting because while you don't go to different planets, you are, you're traversing like this massive space that kind of, it's almost as if like they, instead of going from planet to planet, they just kind of combined all the planets together into one big space. But I will say, when it comes to someone like myself who, I'm not an expert in Harry Potter trivia or, all the expert knowledge of like the extended universe or what have you. So I was just having a blast going through and like discovering all these little places that I could go. I felt like the broomstick flight mechanics were fantastic. It took a little bit of at the beginning to get used to it, but then you can level up and get better abilities, and you basically become more of a master of flying the broomstick as you go along. The graphics were absolutely gorgeous. It was amazing. The architecture in this game, I think, probably is some of the best rendered architecture I have ever seen in a video game. If you look at the castle, the exterior of the castle in 4K, HDR, all that fun stuff, you look at it and it's like, my goodness, this is crazy how the whole place is realized. And then you go into the castle and every type of tapestry or marble type of texture or surface or whatever that you see going on, the fact that the whole place is alive. You have flying parchment papers going places, statues that are talking to you. Just the whole place feels magical. It feels like this enchanted place. And that's a tall order because video games are a different beast than the films.
Yeah.
So to me, like, that was a massive success. Like I tipped the proverbial hat to that studio that worked on it. I don't know if it was Monolith or if it was a different studio, but whoever it was under the Warner Brothers gaming division. I gotta say, I was very impressed. You know, the one thing that really stood out to me as kind of I would say like a disappointment really is the last boss. Like basically the main antagonist in this game. I was just like, you know, this character strikes me more as like a mini boss, right? Like someone that like maybe like if they had multiple different boss types, which they did, they had like different types of encounters throughout the game. That's fine. But to have this character be the final boss, and honestly, the last boss fight was the weakest part of the entire game and what otherwise is a fantastic experience. So that is my number 4.
Yeah, it's funny because again, I'd honestly kind of forgotten that came out this year. That might have slid in at 5 for me. I told you the other day, my process is I write down all the games and go, okay, what do I want to be in my top, and then kind of order them from there. From 3 to 10 was really close for me this year. Top 2 were pretty obvious, but yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That was a fun game. I enjoyed it. I agree with you on the final boss. It was like, oh, color match time.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Here's a purple. Let me run over and hit. Oh, sorry, I was too slow. Okay. But
the boss just didn't scare me. Like that's the thing is like when I get to the final boss, like I want to feel threatened, and he was more of an annoyance to me.
Yeah, and it wasn't epic. You know, there was so much in that game that just felt like it was going to be a huge epic culmination, and you know, even the scenes leading up to it. Look, the game came out in February. I'm going to spoil a little bit here. You know, you're fighting some goblins, and you know, as you're trying to get to the final boss, all the teachers and professors and, you know, you get townsfolk and all sorts of, you know, this big epic battle, and they're defending so you can get deeper in the caverns. And then you get to the boss and it's just like, oh, look, I'm flying around and you have to hit me with the right color. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. And it was Avalanche Software, by the way.
Avalanche, thank you.
That developed it, famous for Disney Infinity during the Toys to Life times of the early 2010s.
Yeah, they did such a great job. I even forgot to talk about the combat mechanics in that game. Yeah. You know, the different spells, all I feel were faithfully reproduced, and the way that the battle sequences took place. I mean, I put in hundreds of hours into that game. That was a game I did, in fact, beat. And not once did I get bored with the combat at all. I always had a fun time deciding how I was going to take on, an evil camp of different bandits or evil wizards or whatever. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Perfect. Good choice. Russ, I like your list so far. You've done well.
Thank you, sir. What is your number 3, Bradley?
Numero tres. For number 3, I've got another little indie game, a game called Dredge. Dredge. Dredge came in as my number 3. It's funny, I hadn't really heard about this game, didn't know a whole lot about it, and I was listening to another podcast, and somebody was talking about how much they loved Dredge, and I was like, all right, I got to check it out, you know, and it is it's a fishing game at its core. You start out, you don't really know who you are, where you are, there's some mystery around it, what's going on, and you got to hop on a boat and kind of figure some stuff out while you're fishing along the way, and it gets into some supernatural elements. You meet some really weird kind of characters along the way. But you've got to strategize as you're going as well, because you can only get so far, and you have to be back in port before it gets dark, or things start happening. It's also got some puzzle mechanics to it, because you've got your cargo hold, which only has so much space. Your engine has to go in certain places, nets in other places. So it's almost like the old Resident Evil, where you're like flipping things around, trying to fit it all into your inventory.
Oh, sure.
You're kind of doing that at the same time. I really, really loved Dredge. And at one point, I think I actually had it as my number 2. It was right there. They've added some DLC, kind of an icy, South Pole type DLC. I just finished that a couple weeks ago. It's just so good. It is such a well put together game with subtle hints about what you need to do, but the gameplay is engrossing. So Dredge came in as my number 3, and right now I can hear you furiously Googling, going, "What the hell is Dredge?"
No.
So but. Yeah, that's why you bring me on, apparently, is to talk about games that that you haven't played. So, ironic or interesting little fact for those that are listening, Russ and I have the same birthday, not the same year, but the same birthday. Dredge was actually released on our birthday. So there you go. There's our useless trivia for this evening.
Useless or awesome?
Awesome. That's what I meant by useless. My words get confused sometimes.
Well, very cool. I will actually have to take a look at that. I'm not very I'm not on top of the whole indie scene thing. So anytime you bring up certain titles, it strikes a chord of curiosity within me.
The funny thing I've come to realize, as much as I enjoy the Spider-Man 2s, and we'll talk about my top 2 in a few minutes, but I keep going back to the indie games. And like right now, even though I've got Alan Wake 2 and I've got Baldur's Gate and there's a couple others I want to play, I'm playing Sea of Stars, which is kind of a 16-bit, 32-bit RPG throwback. And they're just so good. Anyway, they catch me. They catch me in a special kind of way.
Oh yeah.
So good. What do you have in the bronze position, Mr. Perkins?
Dead Space Remake is my number 3 favorite title of 2023. Did you play this game, Brad?
No, I played Dead Space Original, but I have not played the remake.
Okay. So I too played the original Dead Space game, but I never beat it. I got to a certain point and just like could not pass. I kind of got to a part that I couldn't figure out, and like I just ended up like not finishing it. But I always wanted to be able to finish playing that game, because I bought like Dead Space 2. Like I was a Dead Space fan.
Yeah.
And a little bit of trivia, if you didn't see few episodes back or so, well, more than a few, I currently work with the same leadership team that created the original Dead Space. So it's really fun to be able to like be working on our current unannounced IP, knowing that some of these fine folks have been, I get to be a fanboy on a daily basis, be like, oh yeah, you guys made Dead Space. That's awesome. But anyway, Dead Space Remake. So I was very curious about this because sometimes, I would say recently remakes have really been successful. If I think of all the Resident Evil remakes, they've all been really well done, in my opinion. Like, just really fantastic. Final Fantasy VII remake. We're going to get the next installment of that, I think, this year. I think in February, perhaps.
It's pretty quick. Yeah, it's coming up early this year. Yeah.
Okay. But those are some examples of remakes that have have blown me away. And, so when Dead Space Remake was announced, I was like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. Folks, this is a masterclass in doing a remake. It's, so much to love about this game. I am happy to report that I did beat Dead Space Remake, so I was able to go through the whole entire thing. The graphics upgrade, is definitely, it's a no-brainer, right? Like, we all anticipate and understand that when you do a remake, the graphics are going to look better. But I think what's different for me is the sense, in my previous experiences, like, for instance, like the Halo, I think it was like the Master Chief Collection. They ended up doing a revamp of the game engine where when you play it, it does look better than the original game. And they even had an option to be able to kind of go back and forth in real time to show you like the improvements they made.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a true next-gen game engine that you were playing on when you played that game. And so that's kind of the difference between the two. And I'm happy to report that with Dead Space Remake, the whole engine was like this from the ground up was next gen. And let me tell you, Dead Space is already a frightening game. Like, it's survival horror. The first game that I was playing when it came out on Xbox 360, I was like, oh my gosh, like I could only play it for so long before I had to stop and like watch some cartoons just to like stop me from getting too creeped out. It was like that. So now you take that and you make it even more realistic with ray tracing and updated polys and everything else. And it was so awesome to play as Isaac once more and go through this whole like Event Horizon-esque experience. The combat was so good. I forgot like how fun all of the weapons are in that game and how you could upgrade those weapons. I love the fact that like when you stomp on the baddies with your huge space boots, how you can just turn them into like jelly. It was just so gross and just splat-tastic. The story itself was also just a classic, survival horror type of story where, you're trying to make your way through, you're trying to understand what the heck is going on. You can tell that the story clearly takes inspiration from Event Horizon as well. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, Event Horizon has become kind of one of those like cult classics, but, everything about the game, I mean, like, I really didn't find any fault. I mean, you want to talk about last boss fights. The last boss in that game was epic. I mean, it was just like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. It was super fun from start to finish. I just had a wonderful time. I unlocked New Game Plus. I currently have a New Game Plus that I'm playing through with it right now. The different types of suits, the upgrades on the suits and stuff that you can get, and different aesthetics with the suit that you can get is a lot of fun. And to me, it's just yet another example of how to do a remake right. And that is my number 3 pick.
Wow. That's, I've got to say, Russ, how many years have we been doing these year-end top 5s? 6 years?
Well, so Joygasm started in 2017, May of 2017.
Yeah. Okay. So we may have done like 5 or 6. Here's where I'm going. This may be our first year that we don't duplicate any titles in our top 5. There's one I'm worried about. The other one I'm pretty sure you're not going to have on yours, but we'll see. So I feel like I've got to go play Dead Space now, but I don't know when.
So have you not played that game yet?
Not the new one. No, I played the original. I again have not had a lot of time, and we'll talk. Yeah.
One other thing I will say really quickly, that's a plus with the remake is that they actually went through and they took out some of the parts from the original game that were kind of tedious. And it was like well known that like some of the puzzles or some of like the parts of the ship or whatever, they ended up retweaking it and redesigning it. And it works because I remember getting to a couple of those places. I was like, yeah, like in the original game, I was getting a little frustrated with or whatever. It's gone. Like they completely fixed all that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'll have to put it on the long list of things to potentially play. So are we ready for our top 2? Are you ready for my number 2, Russ?
Give it to me, Bradley.
I'm curious. You don't have to say what the games are. Do you think you have any guess on what my top two are?
I have an inkling as to what, one of them could be.
Okay. Well, this one I'm betting you don't have. In my numero dos, I have Pikmin 4.
Oh wow, I forgot that came out.
One of my kids has always been a huge Pikmin fan, and he's 22, so it's weird saying kids because then
they'll always be your kids.
Yeah, we drank a whole bottle of whiskey on Christmas Eve. That's a whole other conversation. Anyway, so I'd never really played much Pikmin. I played a little bit of the first one. I think it was GameCube. And
you know what, Brad? Actually, I was there with you when you first tried out Pikmin in your apartment.
You may have been. That was a long time ago.
I have vivid memories of that, Bradley, being on your couch, surrounded by your cats.
Oh my God. So many cats back then. Oh my God. Anyway, that's what you get for marrying somebody who, that's what I get for marrying somebody who worked in veterinary hospitals. Pikmin 4, to me, was almost a perfect video game. And I don't say that lightly. It was challenging, but not too challenging. It was fun. It had characters in it. All the little different colored Pikmin had different personalities. Colorful. You could play it in bite-sized pieces, which, again, for a gentleman of my age, is a good thing, where I could sit and play for 20 minutes, and that was a day, and I'm done. And it has a fun little false ending about halfway through where you think you've solved what you needed to solve, and then it's like, just kidding. Go back and fix something else. So I 100%ed every area in Pikmin 4. There are some side quest things that I'm still working my way through. But it is a perfect combination of puzzle and strategy and almost a little bit of a roguelite, where you're sitting there going, okay, today I'm going to get just a little bit further in this area. Oh, I got here. I can't get past that until I get a different type of Pikmin or do this, that, or the other. Different, things you had to kind of pull levers on. I adored that game, and it kind of came out of nowhere. Because again, I'd played a touch of Pikmin 1. I don't know, I probably bought Pikmin 2 and kept it sealed forever, and never touched Pikmin 3. So when this came out, and I ended up picking it up, because it was just right at that time where I didn't have anything else that I was playing, and man, Nintendo just has a way of bringing these games that are, perfect in their own little way. And I was like, let me try it out. Let me pick it up. And next thing I knew, I put like 55 or 60 hours into Pikmin 4. I actually had a debate about putting it as number one on my list, but we'll talk about my number one in a few minutes here. But Pikmin 4, if you have not played it, I cannot recommend it enough. I think I don't think it got enough love throughout the year because it's Pikmin. Pikmin never gets as much love as something called Mario, or something with a bigger character to it. But Pikmin 4, I absolutely adored it, and I cannot say enough good stuff about it.
Right on, and you're totally right. Pikmin has always been one of those sleeper hits. It's made by Nintendo. The polish is there.
Yep.
It's an innovative title, but you're totally right. Like it always is in the shadow of the Mario titles and the Zelda titles and anything else in between, right? Like Pikmin has always been one of those games where like you have to play it and you realize the genius behind it once you start to play.
Absolutely. And I think this one really perfected the formula, if you will, on what Pikmin could be. I hope this isn't the end of the road for Pikmin. I hope they find ways to continue making them. It's one of those that every once in a while you go, my God, how are there 4 Pikmins and we haven't gotten a second Eternal Darkness? How did that happen? You know, it surprises me sometimes what games Nintendo goes out there and makes sequels on, but I have zero complaints because it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, Russ, this is one you and the young lady in your house would probably very much enjoy playing together.
Oh yeah, I'm planning on buying it and introducing it to her. I did speak to her about it about a month ago, and she was kind of like, Pikmin, what's Pikmin? I'm like, oh man, like don't worry, I'll buy it and we'll have to try it out because I do think she would like it. I really do.
I think it would be a really good daddy-daughter bonding event playing that together. So good. Well, enough about Pikmin 4. Russell, what is your number 2?
My number 2 pick for 2023 is Street Fighter 6.
Wow. All right.
Street Fighter 6. Have you played this game, Bradley?
So Russ, I suck at video games. I don't know if I've said that out loud recently.
Nonsense.
No, I do. I've reached the point in my life where I play things on easy because I want to experience the story and whatever. And you can tell that by the games I put. So I did pick up Street Fighter 6. I played a little bit of it. I tried an online match, and I think I was knocked out before I even realized what was happening. But ton of respect for what they pulled off. It is gorgeous. It's tight. Talk to us. You put it at number 2.
I did. I put it number 2. And for me, when it comes to Street Fighter, it's kind of an interesting situation because I played a ton of Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, all the Street Fighter 2s. And I kind of fell out a bit with Street Fighter there for a while. I never played Street Fighter 3 or 4. I did buy Street Fighter 5. But that was a bit of kind of a mixed bag for me, if you will, in the sense that, on the one hand, I really liked that they were making this push to like go into like the 3D engine, right? The 3D game engine, despite it still being, like a 2.5D-ish kind of situation. But I felt like the art direction wasn't quite there. It was almost like a work in progress. And I found that the graphics style in Street Fighter 5 was a bit on the crunchy side, and it just like for me, like even the way that they had some of the combat mechanics in there for the way you fill up your fighting gauge and that sort of thing was just, it didn't organically flow for me. Enter Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 comes out, and in my opinion, they absolutely nailed the art direction in terms of it being in this fully realized 3D world. The textures, the movements, everything. I mean, it is so cool to see Street Fighter 2 animations and sensibilities plugged into a next-gen engine and to watch it work. I love the new gauge system that they have in there. Everything about it, like it's so easy to pick up and play. The music is fantastic. Capcom has always been masters of soundtracks for their games. All their games have like just great music. And this one's no slouch either. That they really took more of kind of like a hip hop overtone to things to kind of change things up a bit. I think Street Fighter 5 had more of like a rock and roll, heavy metal-ish kind of approach. So I think they wanted to kind of change things up a bit. So they kind of went with like kind of a funk, groove, hip-hoppy kind of sound to a lot of their stuff. I absolutely love it. Fighting Grounds is where I do most of my play. I do go into the Battle Hub every now and then, but this is a game that, I pick up over and over and over again. Like when I get to like the top 2 places on my list, one of the big factors that is considered is when I sit down to play a game, what is it that I gravitate towards? What is it that I find myself wanting to play? And Street Fighter 6 is one of those games where I sit down and it's so easy to just get in and start playing. And, of course, the personalities, as you well know, are larger than life. And it's such a beautiful game. Like the lighting and everything just looks fantastic. makes me very excited to see the new characters that they're going to be dropping on a regular basis, because the character roster has gotten so big from all the previous titles. And of course I'm going to be picking every one of them up because it's just so fun to play. Now I'm kind of similar to you, Brad, in the sense that like now that I've gotten older, I'm not as good playing fighting games as I was when I was younger, but I don't really mind that too much. Like I'll go in and I'll play against some players and stuff. And most of the time I lose. I don't really care though, because it's just fun. Like it's, to me, they have rediscovered the arcade magic of the replayability of Street Fighter. So I'm so happy that happened, because I wasn't sure if Capcom was going to be able to get there or not, just because with Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, you could tell that they were, that they were still iterating. They were still kind of like trying to try different approaches and stuff. But for me, it just didn't connect until Street Fighter 6, and it connected in a very big way. So that is my number 2.
Very cool. It's funny. I was trying to think of what you might have on your list, and I actually had thought there would be a different fighting game on your list, and maybe it'll show up still. You still have one more slot. We'll see. So interesting. All right. Is it time? Is it time for my number 1 game of the year? Russ, do you want to take a guess what my number 1 is before I release it?
If I had to guess, I would say Zelda.
It is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Absolutely. Man, I don't even know where to start in this game. I think I'll start. I didn't really click with Breath of the Wild, and part of it I think was I didn't put the time in necessary. I don't remember what else came out when Breath of the Wild came out. That was like a lifetime ago. But when it came to Tears of the Kingdom, I said, you know what? I'm really going to jump in and give this thing a shot. And from the way it starts, by the time you get to Hyrule for the first time, you're kind of on the ground. I didn't go to where I was supposed to go, apparently. So I just started exploring. I'm like, this is cool. Let me just run around and see what's out there. And I played about 45 minutes and ended up meeting a little old woman named Inka, I think. And next thing I know, I'm flying up in a hot air balloon with her, and she's explaining some stuff to me. And she's like, yeah, it's great. You can find a bunch of these things. Yeah, go ahead and use your glider and jump down from here. I didn't have the glider at that point because I didn't go to where the mission was supposed to start when you first got to Hyrule. I just started exploring because it's that type of game. And you can just jump in and walk around and wander around. And I think I put it was like 85 hours when I got my wrap up into Tears of the Kingdom. And I don't know the last time I put 85 hours into a single player game. I've probably done it with, Overwatch. I probably put 85. I know I put 85 hours in with Overwatch. I probably put 85 hours in with Fortnite, just playing with friends and other people. But on a single player game to put that amount of time, I can't remember a time that I've done that in the last 10, 20 years. And I still have itches where I want to go back and just keep exploring and hitting different areas because I know there are parts of that world that I haven't seen and I haven't experienced. And I finished Tears of the Kingdom, and there's some things that happen along the way. I won't spoil because I know there's a lot of people who haven't finished it. When you figure out where Zelda is and you go get the Master Sword, and when you fight the bad guy for the last time, it is so epic. It is such the opposite of what we talked about earlier with Hogwarts Legacy, where that last battle in Zelda feels like you earned it. Feels like it's the culmination of 50, 60, 80, 100 hours, whatever you put in leading up to it. I don't know how they pulled off that world on a little cartridge that is the size of my fingernail on my pinky. I can't wrap my head around that. I understand technology and memory and all that good stuff, but how, on a system like the Switch, how did you pull off a game like Tears of the Kingdom? Something that big, something with that much variety, without bugs, without issues, without crashes. It is one of my favorite games of all time. It easily, I'd have to sit down and make that list, but it definitely makes the list of one of my favorite games of all time. And I just loved Tears of the Kingdom. It's not without its moments where you go, oh my God, seriously, there's some of the dungeons, some of the temples that you have to do some things in, but it reminds me of, you were talking about the moment in Elden Ring, right? Where you realize you go underground and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole other world here. And in Tears of the Kingdom, it's literally the same thing. I mean, there's an underworld that mimics and kind of mirrors so much of the overworld. And when you start figuring out, wait a second, the lights in the underworld signify the temples up in the overworld, and the major monuments in the underworld signify something big in the overworld, and it truly is a mirror world. Again, I kudos to the folks at Nintendo for pulling off a game of that magnitude, of that scale, on, my God, how old is the Switch now? 8 years old? 9 years old? Something like that. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they pulled that off, it's amazing to me. I can't say enough good stuff about Tears of the Kingdom, and I need to stop talking, because otherwise we're going to go way over an hour, and we were trying to not do that. But yes, Russ, you have correctly selected my number one game as Tears of the Kingdom. And now, as I talk about it, I kind of want to jump back in and go play more. But I'll stop. I'm done. Russ, what is your number one?
Bradley, the tradition will continue in the sense that my number one pick for 2023 is also Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, man, I thought we were going to make it through. That was the one I was worried about.
Yep. No. The tradition is still alive in terms of us having at least one title that cross-pollinates the lists there. But I do have to say, I'm not as far along into the game as I would like to be. This is one of those instances where not only have I not beat the game, I know that there's a ton more of the game that I need to make my way through. Having said that, I can tell, like, as I play this game, first of all, everything, Brad, that you just said, 100% agree. And I think in my play experiences thus far, you can tell the game design genius of this game. You could tell that also with the original, with Breath of the Wild. But what's crazy is that this game almost seems, it makes Breath of the Wild seem like it was kind of like their first iteration on what Tears of the Kingdom was going to eventually become. If that makes any sense. And I'm the same as you. Like, I never finished Breath of the Wild because I just, I got to a point where I just didn't know where to go, and I didn't know what to do, and there were other games that were coming out, so I ended up never finishing it. Tears of the Kingdom has hooked me more, and I think it's because of some of the new features that they have introduced into this title. I love being able to basically construct different types of seemingly random objects or elements into something that actually works within the physics system of the world. Those types of things are fantastic. Being able to come across something that has some kind of significance, but you have to kind of figure out what goes on. And I think that's a testament to these Zelda titles, is that Nintendo purposely wants to leave you alone. They don't want to handhold you through everything. Like, they'll give you little hints and stuff here along the way, but I found myself having to kind of tweak my expectations psychologically because I've been so conditioned as a gamer to be told what to do, right?
Yep.
And in this game has a lot of very smart puzzles. It has like just smart game design throughout the world. Of course, the weapons are vast. You can even construct your own kind of weapons and do what you want to, customize your stuff. I think part of the brilliance of this game is that they basically injected user-generated content, or UGC, into Zelda. Like they basically gave you this sandbox, which the sandbox did exist in a more simplistic form in Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom just opens the door so much more. And I do think that is part of the magic, really, of this title. The Zelda games that I have played, when it comes from like a narrative standpoint, they are intentionally cryptic. They're kind of, if I had to describe it, it's kind of like this pantomime thing almost of how they go about it. So I don't play these games for the story so much as I play it for the actual gameplay experience, because it's so polished. Like everything is so polished and thought out. And I find myself even like taking breaks over and over and over again, not from playing the game, but like taking breaks, trying to get to the next part of what I'm supposed to do. And instead test the game engine itself to see where the limitations are, because I'm so struck by what is possible. Like what I'm thinking, they couldn't possibly have thought. Nope. Yeah, they did. They did think about that. Yeah. Oh no, I'm sure there's a limitation. Oh wow, no, this actually makes logical sense because of X, Y, and Z. So, for someone like myself who works in the game industry and works with systems designers and that sort of thing, to play a game like this, it's such a master class. Like it is on the bleeding edge of where the game industry as a whole is heading. And they, with this game, just like they did with Breath of the Wild, I mean, once Breath of the Wild was released, you saw all these other titles take inspiration from Breath of the Wild. I think you're going to see the same thing happen with Tears of the Kingdom moving forward. So that is, in fact, my number one pick of 2023. So there you have it.
Wow. So it's like we officially have a Joygasm Game of the Year, because we both picked number one as Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes. No, it is absolutely fantastic. And what's funny is I think you were expecting me to have party animals on my list somewhere on the top five. And it was being considered there for a while, but honestly, these other games had, like, Party Animals is a party game. And it was, like I said, it came very close, but honestly, the other titles that I had listed as my top five, they just had various types of ingenuity and innovation and excellence that Party Animals just by design doesn't have. It's no fault of Party Animals. It's just, it's not supposed to have that.
Yep.
So
yeah. No, I think you got a good list there, sir. I like what you came up with. I can't disagree with anything you've got on there.
Well, I appreciate that, Bradley. I want to thank you, of course, for coming back on. I know it's been a little while since we've had Bradley on the show, but it's always a pleasure to have you on here, sir.
Oh, it's always fun being on, and anytime, and just let me know, and we'll make the next one happen.
Thank you, sir. And actually, we will have him back on in our next episode, because we're going to be doing our top 5 favorite movies and TV shows of 2023. So you don't want to miss that out. So actually, yeah, Bradley, we're going to have you back.
Okay, fine. I'll be back.
Now that I think about it. But anyway, that wraps up this episode of Joygasm. I want to thank each and every one of you for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm, where you can enjoy exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it continues to financially help me do the podcast. Also, click on that subscribe button as well as that notification bell. That way you will not miss a single solitary episode of Joygasm that drops once a week each week. And while you're at it, you could do a search for Joygasm TV, spelled Joygasm TV, on your favorite social media platform of choice to be able to hang out with us and see some behind-the-scenes goodness. Last but not least, do a search for Joygasm TV on Twitch to see me stream my video game adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. We will see you next week.